somebody's making a lot of money doesn't mean it's going to be you. So the size of a market shouldn't get you too excited. It's the
Yeah.
size of the market that you can get for yourself, otherwise known as market share, that really is the important number,
Mm.
in my opinion.
So let's say it's a good product other than my stupid coffee mug idea. And it's something that you would say, yeah, let's sell this. This is a good idea to private label this on Amazon. What do you do next? Welcome, badass entrepreneurs. It's time to hear the world's movers, shakers, and difference makers spill their secrets for unlimited success. So strap in, for Badass Entrepreneurs Only begins now. Welcome, badass entrepreneurs, to yet another edition of For Badass Entrepreneurs Only. I am Coach Dan Gordon and thrilled as usual to be here to help you to do the things that badass entrepreneurs do in an even more badass way. Today, my guest is Michael Veazey. He is an e-commerce guru based in London, England, and he is an expert at Amazon sales. His clients collectively sell over $10 million a year. He guides people on using the Amazon private label opportunity for the ease and creativity of being an online entrepreneur, as well as the freedom of time that offers. Michael is the founder of the 10K Collective, a London-based mastermind with members who have earned over $1 million a year in revenue. His podcast, Amazing FBA, is one of the top podcasts about private labeling on Amazon and has been downloaded over 1 million times. Michael's agency offers one-on-one counseling and group training for high-dollar sellers. We are so fortunate to have him on the show, so let's do this. Michael Veazey, welcome, welcome, welcome to For Badass Entrepreneurs Only.
Thank you very much. I feel like I've got to bring my energy up from the usual British low key to like American rah rah. Yeah, dude, let's rock. It's kind of fun.
No, man, you be you, you be you. So
Yeah.
let's just dive in. What the hell is Amazon private labeling and how do you get into it?
Good question. Well, basically, private labeling is a way of saying that you're going to use somebody else's product and put your own logo on it. And that's really, I guess, I'm going to put this, that was a good idea maybe 10 years ago, even a few years. But these days, I would say I would call it private label 2.0. So you got to develop something a bit more unique about the product. But that's the basic idea, private labeling. And Amazon FBA, Amazon, as you may have noticed, sells an awful lot of widgets online if you want to go and buy there. And it turns out that most of their sales these days, maybe 60%, 70%, it's gradually climbing all the time, are by third-party sellers. In other words, they're not from Amazon. They're other people who use Amazon as a marketplace. So that's basically how that works.
And so, okay, let's say that I develop a new coffee cup, like a new travel mug coffee cup, and I'm going to sell it on Amazon. How do I do that?
Well, I guess the first question is, should you? That's a problem said in Jurassic Park, just because we could doesn't mean we should.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
first question is that a good idea? It's like any
Yeah.
other business idea. Now, a coffee cup, a travel coffee cup, I guess there's probably millions to be made still in that. It would make me a bit nervous because it's the obvious thing that everyone else would be selling. It's more light. It's not, produced by the millions in China, probably. So I would imagine that there's a pretty crowded marketplace. So the first thing is to take the idea and just run a bit of common sense past it. Like, have you really got a really amazing design brain or something that's going to make a mere coffee cup something you can make money from? And then you can go and do some research on Amazon, and there's straightforward tools. Helium 10 is one of the ones I use a lot. Jungle Scout, there's various software tools that will allow you to see how much money is being made by other people and get an idea of how the market is, how the competitive landscape is. One thing I would say about that, though, is it's very, very simple, but really important. Just because somebody's making a lot of money doesn't mean it's going to be you. So the size of a market shouldn't get you too excited. It's the size of the market that you can get for yourself, otherwise known as market share, that really is the important number, in my opinion.
So let's say it's a good product other than my stupid coffee mug idea. And it's something that you would say, yeah, let's sell this. Like, this is a good idea to private label this on Amazon. What do you do next?
Well, I think thorough market research is a real key. So there's a couple of ways of approaching that. One is the numbers on Amazon. The downside of that is everyone else has got access to the same tools, including the Chinese factories who you'll be competing with directly in some cases
Mm,
now. And we're talking the top factories have thousands of workers who are all trained on using the standard tools. So I think what's more important is to do that thing which you came on the Amazing FBA podcast yourself, Coach Dan, and we discussed the idea of talking to human beings, which I think is an extremely good idea because apart from being very effective, it's not something that most e-commerce entrepreneurs seem to do. So
yeah.
you've automatically got a very low tech but very genuine competitive advantage. And I think that the halfway house between that could be, you can jump on Zoom calls, you can do surveys. But I think above all, you need to get a product in your hand at some point and give it to a
Mm,
consumer and get them to use it, not to get them to give you a review, but before you mass produce the thing, to see if people like it. Does it break? Does it actually help people solve the problem you think it's there
mm,
to do? So that's some way down the line. But I mean, broadly speaking, all of that, I suppose you could call is market research, which is the real
yeah.
absolute key. Ready?
So then this is really helpful. What would you say is a good kind of product to sell as an Amazon private label and a bad
Oh,
kind of
wow.
product to sell as an Amazon private label?
Mm. Gosh, it's how long's a piece of string question. Broadly speaking,
Mm,
let's nail the idea that you floated at the beginning that it's a sort of nice, peaceful, sit back and relax and the money pours in concept. I mean, I'm not
mhm,
saying that's exactly how you put it, but the thing about an inventory based business is that it is not a great vehicle for just producing cash with a small amount of cash to start with. Coaching, as you know, Dan, and I do as well, is almost no investment needed up front. Maybe you buy yourself a little bit of podcasting kit or a
yeah.
website. A few $100s will do the investment, right? It's not very sellable business because Amazing FBA is tied to my brand. Obviously, Badass Entrepreneurs is tied to you personally, so that's the downside of it, right? So however, producing cash easily is a virtue of that business model. And if you look at something like an inventory-based business like Amazon, really, that's not the nature of the beast. It's not easy to get cash out of it easily. So
Mm,
that is one of the characteristics you have to grapple with. Now, having said that, to come back to your question, I want to minimize the amount of money that I have to tie up in the business at any given time in order to produce profit, i.e., cash flow is really the thing I really want. Those aren't the same thing, by the way. They're by hands and tail. But just to park that for a second, if I have to import stuff from China and I have to order a load of widgets in one go, then I'm going to be tying my money up for at least 3 months from when I put the money down initially
mm,
to when it lands in the US or wherever. And then I've got to sell through the stock. And I've got to have about 3 months worth of stock if it's going to take me 3 months to get new stock. Otherwise, I'll go out of stock. No stock means no sales. So, and you end up carrying somewhere between 4 and 6 months worth of stock in a good scenario, and often it's more like a year, which means you tied a lot of money up. So one of the things I always look for now is to just the challenge to yourself: how close can your suppliers or manufacturers
mm.
be to the end sellers? And the smaller that number is, the quicker you can move stock, the less you have to have tied your cash up. So I'm not very good at simple things. I
Yeah,
like
right,
I like
right.
the complexity of business, but I hope that makes that kind of sense. So broadly speaking, you want to tie your cash up for as little time as possible because
Yeah,
you will always have to tie it up.
okay. Yeah, that's good. Can you give me an example of a product that has done well on Amazon private labels?
Yeah, sure. I mean, things that have done well in the past, things like beard oil. I've had a client who's ended up selling a business in that space, and exactly the characteristics I've talked about are, I think, why it's sold, and it's sold for a good multiple, good valuation, because it was sourced in the UK and sold in the UK. It was renewable, and therefore you could get subscriptions, and it was something people would come back and buy again and again. So those are the sort of ideal
And I'm
characteristics.
sorry, it was what? What was the product?
Beard oil was the product.
Oh, beard oil. Okay, got it.
Mm,
Got it. So that did well on the private
mm,
label.
it did.
Okay. And so how does someone go about getting their product on Amazon?
Well, that's kind of the easy bit. I was going to say kind of because Amazon always makes you jump through hoops of various
Yeah.
kinds at different points. I think the hardest bit is figuring out what to sell. I mean, getting on Amazon, you
Mm,
go to AmazonSellerCentral.com and it will ask you to, subscribe. You can actually have a free account, but I would suggest getting a professional account for
yeah.
40 odd bucks a month. And then you need to make sure you do you jump through whatever hoops they need to verify your business. Sometimes it's a nightmare for no particularly rational reason. Mostly it's fine. A bit like opening a bank account. That's not really a complicated procedure, and yet it sometimes takes months for no particularly good reason. It's kind of the same. So other than that, that's pretty straightforward. Things you can do to make it even better are to go in with a trademark and to get what's called brand registry, which means that you get some intellectual property protection on Amazon. You can also get access to more tools and better marketing as well. So that's highly worth doing, but you don't have to do that if you don't need to.
Okay. And so now once the product is on Amazon, like the beard oil, how do you go about promoting it, advertising it, because there's a gajillion products on Amazon. How do you get it in front of people?
Yeah, that is the key question. So the good news on Amazon is that you have amazing conversion rates, meaning if 100 people see your product, it's not uncommon for even a product nobody's ever heard of to sell 20 of those visitors, which is a 20% conversion rate, which is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So the art really is about getting it in front of people and getting them to click on it, because once they're on the listings, Amazon does an amazing job because people trust it and like it. They have
Yeah.
prime delivery. So the answer to that question is really advertising and great SEO. So SEO is deciding what keywords you want to rank for. So beard oil would be an obvious one, but possibly hard to rank for. So you might go for something more niche like beard oil. I don't know much about beard oil. Beard oil, super slick. I don't know, long
Yeah.
beard, ZZ top beard would be kind of crazily specific, but you get the idea.
Okay.
Go after longer tail keywords. You put those in the listing, in the title, the bullet points, and anywhere else
Mm.
important. And then you would advertise in those same words. And then you'd also let Amazon's automatic advertising system do its job, which it does quite well a lot of the time.
Okay. And so you're doing advertising that's driving people to Amazon. Would you also create your own website about it that has a link to Amazon, or is that unnecessary?
So just to clarify, the advertising I'm talking about is within the Amazon ecosystem. So it's actually
Oh.
for people who are on Amazon already, because a lot of product-based searches start on Amazon most these days. I would say Amazon is kind of the Google of physical products
Mm-hmm.
because Amazon's built that brand and that trust. So you don't need to go outside Amazon. And I'd advise people not to, because if you think about marketing funnels, then really at the top of the funnel is awareness. So something like a podcast is a classic way of building awareness, but also deep trust and connection. But we're not really here
Mm-hmm.
to sell, right? And
Right.
then the next level down might be email nurture and things like that. And then at the bottom is people looking for words like must have coaching from a guy called Dan right now, and they're going to come and buy your coaching right bottom of the funnel. Now on
Yeah.
Amazon, people are already there with their wallets out. It's not a place to surf, it's a place to shop. And
Yeah.
yes, there might be window shopping at any given point, but broadly speaking, they've got their wallets out, and in fact, Amazon has their credit card on file. So that is why I would suggest very, very strongly that you advertise only on the Amazon platform to start with if you don't know what you're doing.
Oh.
And to your question about the website, yes and no. People probably should have a website, but not for the reason that they think. You're probably not going to make many sales there. But if you go and look for, Dan's amazing travel mug and it's $30 and the average travel mug is 20, they're going to, want to know why it's more. And certainly if you're going to buy, 10 of them or something, or if you offer a great bundle or something more sensitive, like imagine you're selling beard oil and somebody's had a rash from that before. They want to make
Yeah.
sure that what they're putting on their body, if it's honoring the body, people are particularly sensitive, and baby products as well, right? So in that case, they're probably going to Google the name. And at that point, you want to make sure that number one, your social media platforms and your website come to the top of the Google search. And number two, you've got rid of any undesirable things about your product that might be coming up with competition. Not that that's normally an issue, but in other words, it's a reassuring process rather than a selling process. So people go on Amazon, especially getting into customer journeys now, they go to Amazon, put in a
Yeah.
keyword, your listing pops up, they click on it, they think, really like the fact that it's made of titanium. That's pretty unusual, but it's $50. Wow. This guy, Dan's got expensive taste. And then they go and, Google the Dan Gordon travel mug. And lo and behold, up pops the site, and they look at it and think, yeah, this guy looks legit. And,
Hmm.
and then they go back and buy it, hopefully.
Can you sell a non-physical product on Amazon, like coaching services or a program or a workshop?
That's an excellent question. So I don't know much about this, weirdly enough, even though I've sold on Amazon,
Yeah.
coach people to sell on Amazon and also sell services. But I believe you can, actually. It's not
Okay.
something I've ever really investigated. Partly because I think, especially if you want a higher price point, Amazon has a way of commodifying everything. And if you want to not be commodified, I don't think selling on Amazon is a great place to sell.
Mm.
However, if you're considering, Fiverr or Upwork or something, if you're selling freelance services and getting started and you were okay with commodity type pricing, then it could be worth exploring. But honestly, I've
That's
never tried.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
I've also heard that if you try to undercut Amazon, like I'm selling my titanium coffee mug on my own website for
Hmm.
$10 cheaper, that Amazon will find that and make it hard for people to buy your product on Amazon. Have you heard about that?
I have, yeah, experienced it. I mean, it's very true now. It's interesting that Amazon's going through quite a few legal battles at the moment.
Mm.
It seems like in America, the only people who are really going to regulate the tech giants that dominate our lives all over the world, including the UK, are the US Congress. But well, that's not strictly true. I mean, the EU has been doing quite a lot of work. I guess they've got fewer, direct things they can hold over those companies. But anyway, so Amazon is being told off for that. But that's certainly true. What they'll do is remove the buy box, or they have done historically, which
Yeah.
means that you'll lose 80% of your sales. So they effectively, it's not exactly a monopoly, but it's somewhat monopoly-like behavior. It's certainly anti-competitive behavior, and therefore it's being looked at by the antitrust legislation. I think the monopolism merges competition. Guys in the UK are probably looking at it, and the EU is as well, but it's still a problem.
Mm.
So it is something to be aware of. But again, that raises the other point, which is kind of channel pricing conflict, if you want, which is to say, if you, like a lot of people with more established businesses that I've worked with, if you sell widgets at a certain profit margin to be sold in shops all around the country at $50 and you want to sell it on Amazon for $40, well, now you're the guy undercutting somebody else, and equally you're going to annoy other people. So you
Yeah.
have got to think through your pricing strategy if you're going to be omni-channel, as the
Mm.
buzzword is, before you
Yeah.
start anyway.
Michael, do you encourage people that you coach to just sell on Amazon and not be multi-channel?
Um, no, I would say it really depends where you're at in your business life. I mean, at this
Mm.
stage of proceedings, and I'm sorry to say this, but I think it's important to say this, that I don't think it's a great model for those just starting out if they don't have decent capitalization, because it's getting more and more competitive, like any mature market, which is fine. I mean,
Hmm.
it doesn't mean there aren't ways to sell on Amazon that are lower risk and more affordable if you get to retail arbitrage or reselling products, or wholesale sourcing. So you source at wholesale prices and sell at retail. Those are all lower risk. So given that, you may find that you've got more sophisticated people coming into the space now, and those people I might advise to start omni-channel. But mostly it's better to just focus on one thing at a time and stabilize it
Mm.
in life and business. I'm sure you've experienced that.
Yeah.
I'm not the person to talk to about how to do omni-channel successfully, because I'm really Amazon focused. But
Yeah.
I think what I do see happening that is the opposite of what you should do is to have a not very functional but very time consuming Shopify or WooCommerce site, which is to say a kind of functional sales type site which could sell stuff but mostly doesn't,
Hmm.
but takes a lot of your time and energy up. And then you're also doing Amazon. That's kind of pointless. You're getting all the downside of running your own site there without the upside, i.e., the money. So
Yeah.
I would really caution against doing it halfway. If you're going to do it, you need to really go deep into it.
Gotcha. So, apart from some moron trying to sell a coffee mug on Amazon, what are the biggest mistakes that Amazon brand owners make?
Well, I'm going to talk about established people now. So those are
Mm.
more my sort of the people that I tend to work with rather than people starting out now.
Okay. Yeah.
I would say that they don't take seriously what's working and try desperately to make those things that are half working or not really working work. And that's just human nature. I mean, I do it all the time myself, every day. It's hard to avoid, but that's when having a coach or a mastermind or some human being to reflect back to you. Sometimes it's my wife will say to me quietly, like, "Yeah, Mike, that isn't really justifiable, is it?" Or some such words. And
It's
you've
very
got to take a
kind.
good hard
Yeah.
look. Yeah, not or such. Yeah, maybe more harsh language than that. And so somebody somewhere else doing it for you is a lot easier, because it's so hard to see things objectively when you've put months of effort into things. But it's the sunk cost
Yeah.
fallacy, isn't it? So you have spent $30,000 on some, a substantial test order for a product with a lot of different variations. I'm thinking of one client who had something in the clothing space, and you
Hmm.
got big, small, pink, boys, girls, whatever
Yeah.
variations going on. And you spend a lot of money marketing it, and then it loses you money. Well, okay, at some point you've got to say, is there a path to profit? And if so, have you got evidence for that? And once you spend $30,000, you better at least have some evidence, some data as the back of that. And often the answer is no. And then you've got to
Yeah.
just eat that sunk cost of the time and the money, but above all, the emotional commitment and just admitting that you're wrong, and which dents your confidence, all of which sucks, as we all know. And I think if you're able to be emotionally intelligent enough to eat sunk costs, then you turn around and you've got rid of that nonsense that wasn't
Yeah.
performing for you, and you go, well, hang on a second, this thing that I wasn't that excited about just kind of went up 50% in sales this last 6 months when I was neglecting it.
Mm.
What would happen if we optimize that listing to convert? So better images, more precise marketing messaging, more of a story, as you were saying about the fishing lure, that you mentioned on our podcast. So if you're selling a fishing lure, you're not selling a fishing lure, you're selling the ability for somebody to wave a fish in somebody's face and say, yeah, I'm better than you,
Yeah.
as you put it so beautifully. And so if you can wrap that sort of sophistication around your product, and maybe do a version 2.0 of the product, and maybe
Mm.
spend a bit more money in a mindful way of marketing, suddenly you could double the profits or triple the profits of that if you got more
Wow.
efficient without mucking about with a new product. I'm not saying that will always be the case, but it often
Hmm.
is, surprisingly often.
That's really beneficial because, especially what you were talking about, Michael, in terms of like, okay, if it's not working and you put effort into it, walk away. And, it's hard to do that
Yeah.
because, right, you put the emotional investment. Like, um, I once came up with this program called the Master Achievement Program about helping people achieve their goals because 87% of Americans fail at their goals. So I thought, well, this is great. Yeah, I gamified goal setting, like I had this whole system. And then right before I launched it, it occurred to me, is anybody going to actually want this? And when I started doing the market research, what everybody said was, why should I pay you to achieve my goals? When I can do it myself. And I go, well, but the statistics show that you're likely to fail. And they're like, yeah, but I'm going to beat that odd. So it's like, okay, right? It was a
Hmm.
crappy idea based on the fact that nobody wanted to buy it. So no matter how good you think your product is or how much you love it, if people don't want it, people
Hmm.
don't want it. And with the 10K collective, first of all, I want to know a little more about that. And do you do you talk to people in your mastermind about, look, I get that you put a lot of time into this. It's terrible.
So the answer is yes, I do. I hope that people understand that it's with the very best of intentions. I like and admire my mastermind members. So the mastermind's been going since September 2017. It's probably the favorite thing I've done in the
Hmm.
e-commerce space and in business. And I think one of the most valuable, I'm not saying it can't be improved in its basic format and everything else, but it turns out when you put a bunch of people together who are doing very, very similar but not competing stuff, and they don't normally get to talk to other human beings, there's an outpouring of detail and sharing, and people go away and do stuff that somebody else did that worked for them, and lo and behold, it
Yeah.
works for them as well. So it works really well. It's a fairly simple format. It's basically the idea of the fairly pure mastermind as I think oh god knows, it was Rockefeller that was observed doing this by Napoleon Hill, I think back in the
Hmm.
1920s. So you had
Exactly.
this sort of four people in non-competing industries that you had lunch with once a week. So it's not quite the same as that, but it's kind of similar, and it does work. People overcomplicate the concept and will call a mastermind when they've got a room full of 200 people watching a presentation. I can utterly understand from the business model point of view why they do that. It makes a lot more money, but that is what I would call a masterclass or a seminar or whatever, which is great, but that's not the same as interacting on your own business. Um,
Mm.
so
And
coming, yeah.
with the 10K collective, is that face to face or can you get in it online?
We've kept the face-to-face component. It used to be all face-to-face in London once a month. We now do 5 or 6 meetings face-to-face in London
Mm.
once a month, once a year, I should say, and then the rest are on Zoom. And um, Zoom is fine. It's more transactional. It's somehow harder to get that multi-way discussion going. That is where the
Sure.
real value is. But Zoom works well as well. One of the things we do with Zoom that works very more naturally is we have a guest expert in, and again,
Mm,
I produced hundreds of podcasts. You know how that goes. And that's
yeah.
not the same as somebody telling you stuff from the front. We get the people to come in and do a sort of 20 or 30-minute slot on an individual person's business where they can really focus on what's bugging them or the big opportunity they think they're missing. Everyone else is listening in and learns a ton. And then the next person does the
Mm,
same as well. And that works really well. And that's generally on Zoom because our experts can be all around the world.
I see.
So yeah, it's a mixture of the two.
And if somebody wants to get into the 10K collective, how do they do that?
Just go to theamazonmastermind.com. Amazingly, that hasn't been taken down by Amazon's lawyers yet. Theamazonmastermind.com. And you can read more about it there and click to apply. So I will have a Zoom interview because I want to get to know the people coming
Yeah.
in. Partly because people often have a lot of skills that they don't bother mentioning unless you ask them. And
Mm.
then we've got those skills available to everyone else in the group. And so, you can really build a true mastermind, if you like to put it that way.
That sounds like a very UK thing. People aren't sharing the skills that they have. And here in America, people tend to share the skills that they don't have. Uh,
Yeah, that could
and
be
so,
true. Yes.
yeah, very good that you screen people. Is there a certain bar that people have to have and to get into the collective?
Yeah, a minimum of about $500,000 a year on Amazon in revenue. I mean, it could be split between Amazon and a couple of other e-commerce platforms, I guess. But
Okay.
that kind of level. And we've had quite successful resellers, as in people who buy other people's products and sell them. But
Hmm.
generally, the focus is private labeling slash custom product brands. And so we're trying to, if at least you've got to be on the path to recreating that.
Okay. And so let's say that I'm just getting started in Amazon private labeling and I want to be part of a consulting group. What do you have to offer for that?
Well, people getting started, man. I used to do a lot of one-to-one consulting. I've run groups for beginners, and the trouble with that is it's a bit like a gym for people who aren't very fit. It's mostly empty. I didn't
No.
find that works. It was probably quite a good business for me, but I actually shut that down because I just felt
I
bad that I
see.
wasn't giving people value. That was probably naive of me, but there you go.
Hmm.
And then one-to-one consulting, I think, is the way to go there because you need a lot of guidance. You don't have that much to offer when you're totally new to an area, I think. I mean, you
Yeah.
might as a human being, but not really specific skills. Um, I don't do a lot of that these days because I don't necessarily think that for most people that's the way to go if they have
Hmm.
modest capital. If they have solid capital and they're willing to be, grown up about the fact that it takes time and money invested before you get a return, but that
Yeah.
the upside is really building a business to sell in the future, then I do consult with those guys. So you can check out the mentoring page, amazingfba.com/mentoring. Done a metric ton of mentoring over the years of people starting out, don't get me wrong, but I don't want to guide people irresponsibly. Um,
Okay.
it's not an easy market to enter now. So if you've got plenty of skill and money, good times. Otherwise,
Hmm.
another thing you could consider, which I am starting to consult with people more and more about, is the opposite end of the scale, where people have actually sold businesses or have substantial capital of several hundred thousand to invest or several tens of thousands to invest in buying a business in the Amazon
Hmm.
space, but don't necessarily understand the space. They understand business in general and what a balance sheet is and so forth. I'm working with a couple of guys like that right now, and that's actually really exciting because I feel, although that's also got its risks, they are at least established business people, and what they don't know, I can provide, as in the Amazon knowledge.
Hmm.
So overall, that feels a more responsible thing for me to be offering, and I enjoy that more. So that's really honestly my main focus these days.
Gotcha. And so if somebody just wants to kind of learn about this, do you have an ebook, a white paper, a video, just like the 10 things they should do in terms of getting into Amazon private labeling?
Yeah, I do. It's called the 10 Steps or the Build Guide. And embarrassingly, I can't remember the URL for it because it's been a while since I've given it up. So we can probably record something at the end and
Well,
get a redirect to that.
Well, I tell you what I'm going to do, Michael, just because I like you. I'm going to offer this as a giveaway to my audience, and here's how to get it. Just text Text the letters FBA, Frank Badass. There you go. What does FBA actually stand for, Michael?
Fulfilled by Amazon, but I prefer Frank Badass. That's much better.
Let's call it Frank Badass. Okay. So text the letters FBA to this number, 213-409-8366. 213-409-8366, and text the letters FBA, and you will get Michael's 10 things that you need to know to be successful at selling on Amazon. Once again, text FBA to 213-409-8366 and get this download. Michael, if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
Honestly, just send me an email, old school, Michael, Michael, at amazingfba.com. You can always drop me a PM in Facebook, but the trouble with that is if we're not Facebook friends, I might not see it and blah, blah, blah. It gets complicated. So that's the simplest way.
Okay.
If it's of interest, I have got the URL for the build guide, the 10 steps to build your private label business, by the way, which is at go.amazingfba.com/build, which gives you a broad overview of the process. It's not going to give you absolutely step-by-step from, day one. I do have a course that gives you step-by-step from day one, but I've taken it offline because it had 360 videos. It was just overwhelming. So I can, however, guide, individuals one-to-one. That's probably the best thing.
Yeah, sounds like it. So, what I'm getting is that, look, this is not an easy get rich quick, just sell my dumb thing on Amazon type of thing. You really have to put some time and effort into it. It's got to be a decent product. It's got to be something that you're committed to. And like anything else, when the internet started, when social media started, now with Amazon private labeling, there's always this sort of a unspoken promise that, oh, here's the way to really make this happen quickly. That doesn't exist. So what I hear you saying, Michael, is, be honest with yourself. It's going to take time. It's going to take money. Nothing happens overnight. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, so if you think about real estate or property, as we call it over here, then I guess the mindset you'd approach that naturally is probably more correct than the whole latest digital marketing craze, whatever it may be, as you say. So, you wouldn't probably expect to buy a house with no money, although there are nothing down possibilities. You're probably going to borrow most of the money, but you're going to have some kind of capital to invest. There is a degree of risk, but you can mitigate that by using good lawyers and accountants and or advisors. You don't have to go crazy with expensive lawyers to start with, but at least somebody who's done it before, and expect to spend substantial money and for some of that money to stay locked up. It's called working capital. It's the same as if you put a $20,000 deposit on a $100,000 flat. I mean, in this part of the world, there's not really such thing as a $100,000 flat, but let's say $1 million apartment's going to put $100,000, whatever the numbers are. It's got to be proportionate to the size. And that's the other thing I would say. And I'm seen to be like the bad news guy on this. I know so many people who sold businesses for millions in this space, having started with a very modest investment. I promise it's a huge payoff. But if you think in terms of years and really big payoff, not months and small payoff, that's when you're going to really get somewhere with this model. And if you go in expecting that, like you don't expect to buy a house now and then flip it in 6 months, it'll take you 6 months to buy it normally in this country anyway.
Sure.
But if you think you're going to buy it now, do it up, make it a wonderful place to live. The market goes up over time naturally. There's a lot more you can do with it than real estate, but you get the idea. And then you're going to sell it for, an extra 300,000 in 4 years' time. That's still a pretty damn good deal, right? That's a great return on your time.
Sure.
But it takes longer and takes more money. That's the mindset I'm trying to get across here.
Well said, really well said. I genuinely appreciate you breaking it down so we understand this is an investment of time and money and effort, like anything else. It's like starting a business. Do you have the advantage that you don't have to, create the website and all the infrastructure? That's all done for you. That's the advantage. Everything else is still the same sweat equity of any other business. Hey, has there been a product on Amazon that you thought this is never going to work and it just blows up?
It's a good question. Yeah, honestly, beard oil that my client did so well out of. It sounded, even when he started doing it in a big scale back in 2017, 18, it sounded like a
Yeah.
cliche already. A lot of people sold beard oil. And yet somehow, I don't know how he sort of engineered it. I think, I do know he just did really good branding and
Mm,
was meticulous about the detail. So the detail of the formula, which
yeah.
was, I think, borrowed from somebody else. He didn't create the formula for it, but the packaging was, for example, he'd re-engineer the packaging just to make it a tiny bit smaller so that it would be a little bit less expensive to store and to ship and to freight and to fulfill. That kind of attention to detail. But I think it was the
Yeah.
visual branding that he really nailed. And that still counts now. I mean, I really have been reviewing a business on behalf of a client who's potentially going to spend maybe $500,000 on a business, so quite a serious investment. And one of the things that it kind of surprises me even now that in some quite high traffic categories, I'm not going to name the product category for obvious reasons, but it's in the sort of baby space, which is still very popular. And there's still some pretty mediocre image marketing going on out there. And so
Mm,
if you really truly create a brand that has a visual identity and a sort of character, as opposed to being bland and boring and just a product, then there's still great scope for, I think, creating something out there that has
that's
legs.
that's great. Yeah, and I tell my clients, I tell people all the time, make it interesting. Like whatever you're selling, it has to be interesting.
Yeah.
Don't don't put all of your effort into making it a great product because
Hmm.
great doesn't move the needle. Finding something interesting about your product is what really makes people buy it. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
first step in them getting to make that decision. And I love like beard oil. Like I don't think I even know what that is, but he did something to make it interesting.
I agree.
And
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
The other thing is that the my friend Rick Cesari says he was behind all the lean green grilling machine and various crazily successful things in the 90s and noughties. Um, Different is better than better, which is a really interesting
Yeah.
phrase. Different is better than better. So if you sell beard oil, I mean, like most people are poker files. I think, like if you look at, I don't know if this is true or not. There's damn lies and statistics, but sometimes 96% of women are pogo phobic. They don't like beards, and 4% of pogo files. So it is already niche to even have a beard. So I don't want a beard. I don't want beard oil. I wouldn't know what to do with it, and you probably didn't even know it existed. So that's good. That's like the Marmite thing, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
you're not trying to be all things to all people. You're different. You're better because you're different, not because you're trying to be a better beard oil. Because as soon as you do that, you're competing with 900 other people who can get access to the very, very similar products. And then it becomes a sort of ridiculous price war very quickly. And that's the downside on Amazon. So you've got to differentiate your product.
Mm,
That's job number one. It's true in all marketing, right? But in
yes.
particular in the Amazon space, it's absolutely life or death.
Wow. This has been so helpful, Michael. I sincerely appreciate all of the wisdom and the perspective that you're bringing to this. Very, very helpful. By the way, Marmite, one of the most disgusting things on the planet. Anyway, appreciate you coming on the podcast. Appreciate what you shared and appreciate what you are doing. And one last time to get the 10 steps of getting onto Amazon or getting into Amazon private labeling, just text FBA, Frank Badass, to 213-409-8366. And also put a link in that so you can get in touch with Michael directly. Again, thank you for being on the show and looking forward to seeing what's next from you,
Yeah.
Michael. Be well, my friend.
Thank you very much. It's been my pleasure.
Hey, one last thing. If you're feeling stuck in business life, wherever, download my book, Jumping the Gap, Kill Your Story and Take Action. In this book, you'll see how the stories that you tell yourself are stopping yourself from living your greatest life. Just text the word GAP, G-A-P, to this number, 213-409-8366. 213-409-8366, and text the word GAP. It's a short read, it's fun, it's easy. And if you hate reading like I do, you can grab the audiobook. It's at that same link. Just text the word GAP, G-A-P, to 213-409-8366. You'll love it. All right, that's it. Go out there and be badass today.